Stephen Raw is a calligrapher and cartographer working in Manchester, England. He had already had various maps published by HarperCollins when he was approached in 1992 to reversion the maps for The Lord of the Rings. The problem facing the publishers was that the original maps, drawn by Tolkien's son Christopher, did not reduce well in the paperback edition. Some names became illegible, and the detail of contours and river confluences was lost. Raw's challenge was to revise the maps so that when they were reduced for the paperback edition, they could still be read. But it was important that they should still retain the style of the originals.
There was a weight of expectation because the maps of Middle-earth are so symbolic of the story of Lord of the Rings. They are so distinctive. They've got their mountain ranges that we can almost trace in our minds if we've seen the maps, the coastline, and these things, and the rivers, and they're all mixed in with the sort of very particular lettering style for the place names and the river names and the towns and villages. There were times when I was getting a bit nervous, but as soon as I started talking to Christopher Tolkien and him bringing up some of the things that I'd got wrong and some of the corrections, I was able to switch off that, I think, and concentrate on it. I've always liked maps. I'm very happy to sit with an atlas in the same way people read books. I'm very happy to sit for an hour with an atlas, and even now. And then as a kid, always making up maps and maps of where I lived and so on. And it's all part of drawing, which I've always liked. Some people see calligraphy as drawing, which I do, and it's picking up a different pen to draw letters or to draw mountains in this case, or little trees, the very distinctive Christopher Tolkien trees that he has, or roads, or borders, or compasses, or scales. It's all just drawing. Tolkien was such a visual person himself. He painted and he sketched and he was a good calligrapher, and he had his own languages in their own scripts. So he was very accomplished in that way. And that visual thinking would lead me to surmise that he was working on those maps, even in sketch form, very early on. The imagined place names described on the maps have, in turn, sort of entered the imagination of readers. That's how I see it. Even like in this case, in sort of invented places, they lock in ideas and give a special place to everything, and there's a certain sort of connection. As soon as you have a map, you connect one part of something to another. And if it's a real map, if you're trying to go from here to the supermarket, there's an obvious connection. But if you're trying to travel across Middle-earth, there are all these points of reference. And maps, at a glance, hold it all together in a way that thousands of words can't. Maps have got it all there, as I say, at a glance. Because they were done a while ago, I've begun to see them in a different light than when I did them. And what I've come to, the conclusion I've come to, which is that their universality, and they don't necessarily, are a specific place, but they encompass sort of landscapes that we can all relate to. And it's funny how we relate to landscapes through maps quite often. We quite often go to a place with having read a map. It may be a very cursory map, it may be just a road map, but it may be an Ordnance Survey map. And you can't actually arrive there necessarily without that map in your mind. So it's the same with Lord of the Rings maps. I'd be interested to know how many people turn to the maps before they start reading and getting some sort of sense of place and connection in their experience through the maps. I can't remember when I read Lord of the Rings, which was a while ago. I can't remember whether I did that, but I suspect I was straight into the maps. It would be one of the first things I would have looked at. The maps do make sense in a real geographical world, that's for sure. The way the rivers come down and flow into each other. I mean, it's absolute given that Tolkien would have loved maps himself. I think he, being a visual person, he liked all those things, and in the same way that I like the sensual lines of contours and coastlines, and the way that he got Christopher to put in the very distinctive sea and on the coast there, he would have loved maps. He would have been poring over them, looking at the mountains, relating to where rivers rise and how rivers flow into each other, and the estuaries and all those sorts of things. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I've always enjoyed doing maps. I've always enjoyed drawing them, and as a kid always drew maps, probably out of my head or of the place I lived in. And that has gone right the way through. So maps have always been a joy to do, and I've always looked forward to doing them, and I still do them.